Going live to YouTube just so you guys know. Right now. Do I have a motion and a second to reconvene public session?
Yes.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now if everyone can please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence for our servicemen and women. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. With us this evening, we have Mr. Kolahipar,
Here.
Mr. Hauser,
Present.
Dr. Adams, present, Mrs. Napolitano-Furno,
Present.
Mrs. Kennedy,
Present.
Mrs. Augulus,
Present.
Mrs. Mallett, present, Mr. Murphy, and Mr. Sheehan, and myself, the district clerk. At this time, I'm going to ask that Mr. Sheehan give our newly re-elected board member, Mrs. Napolitano-Furno, and have her swear her into office.
And repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Jacqueline Napolitano-Furno,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of
the office of Board Trustee
the office of Board Trustee
of the Connecticut Central School District
of the Connecticut Central School District
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
At this time, I will now accept nominations for the office of president of the Connecticut Central School District's Board of Education.
I'd like to nominate.
Can you please turn your mic on? Thank you.
I'd like to nominate Jackie for president. This is her fourth year, not her first.
I second that.
And third.
Fourth. So at this time, I'm going to we're going to roll call the vote for Mrs. Napolitano-Furno as board president. So you have Mrs. Augulus, how do you vote? Can you state your vote for the record?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thumbs up, yes.
Mrs. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mrs. Mallon,
I'm a yes.
Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Napolitano-Furno.
Yes, and thank you.
So before I pass the meeting over to you, I'm just going to call for nominations for the office of vice president. If you want to swear in now? Sure. So I was ahead of myself, so we will now have Mr. Sheen swear you in for office of the president. Yes, please.
Please rise. Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Jacqueline Napolitano-Furno,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of
the office of Board President
the office of Board President
of the Connecticut Central School District
of the Connecticut School District
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
At this time, I will now accept nominations for the office of vice president of the Connecticut Central School District's Board of Education.
I'd like to nominate Mylan. I will second.
Are there any further nominations?
I'm going to nominate myself.
any further nominations? So I'm going to call a roll call vote for Mrs. Augulus. She was nominated first. So for the nomination of Mrs. Augulus, how do you vote?
Yes to me.
Mrs. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Mallon?
No.
Mr. Murphy?
No.
Mrs. Napolitano-Perna?
Oh, yes.
So at this time, there is a board consensus to elect Mrs. Augulus as Vice President of the board. If Mr. Sheehan, if you could please administer the oath.
Please rise and raise your right hand.
I'm gonna take off my ratty sweater when I get a picture. Turn your mic on too much, I'll say.
I state your name.
I, Mylan August,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of New York State,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of
the office of Board Vice President
the duties of Office Vice President
of the Connecticut Central School District.
of the Connecticut School. I know, right? That was a mouthful. Connecticut Central School District.
According to the best of my ability.
According to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I will hand the meeting over to the board president, Mrs. Napolitano-Perna, who will now preside over the meeting.
Now we will have the school attorney, Mr. Sheehan, administer the oath of office to the district clerk and superintendent of schools. Within 30 days, the district clerk will administer the oath of office to the remaining offices as required by law. Oath of office, superintendent of schools. Oath of office, district clerk.
Thank you. Please rise and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Linda Adams,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of
the office of the Superintendent of Schools
the office of the Superintendent of Schools
of the Connecticut Central School District
of the Connecticut Central School District
according to the best of my abilities.
according to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations.
And now the district clerk. School board member ethics. Board of Education members will review the policies enumerated below and will complete and sign said policies and return to the district clerk not later than August 24th, 2021. Policies have been handed out. Policy 2160, policy 2160-E, policy 2160-E2, policy 2160-R. Changes to the meeting agenda. Changes to personnel schedule and consent agenda.
Yes, and you can ask me later when we get to those, and I'll enumerate them.
Okay. So call for a motion.
It's not needed at this time because
Okay.
changes were made prior to the start of the public session.
Okay.
Motion for the appointment of officers. Yes.
Call for the motion of the appointment of officers. Call for motion second to appoint the officers of Connecticut Central School District as enumerated on the agenda. All in favor?
Then is that as we
Call for a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Oath of office, within 30 days, the district clerk will administer the oath of office to the remaining officers as required by law. Audit committee meeting, call for motion and second to suspend the reorganization meeting and call the audit meeting to order. Motion? Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Audit presentation by Jill Sanders of Cullen and Danowski.
Good evening to the Board of Education. Thank you for inviting me to your meeting. And I will try to make my presentation as brief as possible because I know you have a very large agenda. The materials that I had distributed are an introduction to the audit plan, how we go about deciding how we're going to audit the school district. And so I'm going to look at a couple of pages with the Board of Education since we don't have time to go through the whole set of materials. If there are any questions, please direct them to the administration, and I'll be more than happy to respond with whatever specific questions you have. On the overview of the table of contents, I wanted to start with our engagement objective. So on page 1, my role is to express an opinion on the financial statements. That's my primary role. And I'm expressing an opinion in accordance with whether or not the financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with the standards, which are accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. Because the school district has federal funding that they expend, I'm also required under the government auditing standards to report on the internal controls over financial reporting in compliance with laws and regulations. And then the state education department, even though these funds are not under the control of the business office or school district directly, wants your auditor to look at the extra classroom activity fund transactions. So we do, that's a separate cash basis report that's distributed. The district has a significant amount of federal funding that they secure. And we know with the CARES Act, that number went up even more. We were fortunate enough to get over $5 million collectively across the years. And so because there is over $750,000 of federal expenditures, the district is subject to a federal single audit. We just completed our federal single audit in March of 2022. The deadline is June of 2022 for fiscal year 2021. It was a report that looked at major programs, so it's the largest expenditures that the district has, and it's the federal funds under Section 611 and 619. It was a clean report in that there were no federal award findings, so Board of Education and the school district should be pleased about that. On page 2, there's some detailed information about what the audit engagement is, and this is fairly straightforward to follow. And just as a reminder, my role is different than the internal auditor, who is risk assessing all the internal control structures that are in place, and then deciding with the Board of Education what areas will be audited on a particular basis. My role is different than the internal claims auditor in that I do not look at every transaction that gives rise to an expenditure. So my role is primarily to say whether or not the financial statements fairly present in accordance with the standards. On page 3, my responsibility is to the Board of Education. So if there's anything significant that needs to be communicated to them, they are my first level of communication. I unfortunately have not had to reach out to the board president in the past, but I am appointed by the Board of Education. Unfortunately, I have the cooperation of the administration with respect to any documentation that we request and any access to staff people on a confidential basis. So I do appreciate that. On page 4, district has a number of responsibilities. So as you can appreciate, it's the district's financial statement. We as the auditors are auditing the contents. Contents are audited back to the transactions posted through Finance Manager, which is the accounting software that the district uses. And we're also auditing information that's given to the Board of Education throughout the year. We want to make sure the treasurer's reports are representative of the account balances in the books and records. We've already accomplished this procedure, and that worked out effectively. We want to make sure that the status reports that are available agree with the information that we see in the books and records, and all of that tied in. We look at budget transfers, we look at journal entries, supporting documentation. Obviously, the Board of Education has transfer authorization for a certain dollar amount, and we want to make sure, as the auditor, that that is being abided by. And in the sample of transactions that we looked at, that was good. And so the internal control structure, we may report on certain things in the management letter, matters that have not been significant, deficiencies or material weaknesses in the past, but matters that we feel from a procedural standpoint the district should evaluate. You might remember in the previous year's management letter, there were no new comments, and 4 out of the 6 prior year comments the board and the district took action on. So there's 2 carryover comments in the corrective action plan that the Board of Education adopted. It appears that that's in place, so we will revisit those for the June 22 financial statement audit and comment on those as carryover comments in the management letter. On page 5, I wanted to talk a little bit about the methodology, about how we decide what we're going to do and how we approach the audit. So it starts with a risk assessment, and a risk assessment in planning of the audit. A risk assessment is what are the major internal control cycles. And as you would appreciate, in the school district, payroll benefits the largest portion of the budget expenditures. So that's a very large area that we're focusing on. Expenditures would be the next area. And then we're going to be looking at things such as revenue recognition, because there are services provided for which the district receives money. We're going to look at the information technology controls as it relates to the software that's used for the accounting. And we're going to also look at journal entries and budget transfers, as I mentioned before. So that's off to the right. That's what we're evaluating. We do this by actually gaining an understanding of what everyone in the district does with respect to those financial control cycles. We map out whether or not there's segregation of duties, okay? And then we map out if there's not segregation of duties, because sometimes it's expensive to have numerous people involved in the process. Is there a mitigating control? So this is a check, okay? This is a check after the transaction. So there's a really good system of internal control, as you gathered back from the previous year's management letter. But nevertheless, each year we have to do this as if we've never done it before. It's really important. We start from the beginning and we interview people and we map out what they do. We determine if the segregation of duties, as I said, mitigating controls. We perform what's known as a walkthrough. So we want to actually process a transaction in a fashion that the person who's responsible for processing it will, and make a determination that the outcome is the way it should be, okay? And then depending upon the area, as I mentioned, there are certain areas that are, more important from a financial cycle standpoint, payroll and expenditures, bank reconciliations, and cash transactions. We'll pull a sample that's representative of the population, and we'll expand on the procedures and attributes that we're looking for. So that's pretty much how we approach the controls to see whether or not they're effective controls and whether or not they're in place. On the next page then, on 6, when we come back for the second part of the audit, we perform the substantive portion. And substantive means just what it sounds like. We want to substantiate account balances. We want to substantiate transactions. So obviously we can't do this till the books and records are closed, so it's after June 30th. And you'll see the dates that we have scoped out for the engagement on the following pages. And this is where we're really going to drill down on the account balances and get supporting documentation, a lot of third-party documentation, to get comfortable with the fact that the numbers are representative of the financial transactions and that things are fairly reported, and that information that's transmitted to the state education department is representative of what's in the books and records, especially when it comes to grants that the district is receiving. And so I have down off the left side of this, page 6, the areas that we'll look at. The district has some reserves in place, very important. This is what you've been using to support your budget on an ongoing basis. And we know that these are board authorized both for increases and spending or through the budget. So we'll look at the authorization for the change in those reserves. Capital project expenditures are noted in the board minutes. There were several change orders that have been approved, contracts awarded. We'll look at that to make sure that the transactions are in compliance with what the board are actually authorized. There are some long-term liabilities. There are 2 sets of financial statements. I'm not sure that the existing board members from previous years remember this. There's a full accrual basis financial statement which has all of the assets of the school district and all of the liabilities, whether they're paid for out of next year's budget or budgets 10 years, 20 years down the road, and the numbers are very large, not necessarily representative of what the school district's transactions are, because your books are maintained on a modified accrual basis, which really tracks here's our budget as to what we're going to spend, and this is the results against our budget. But nevertheless, this presentation requires us, on the bullet that's the second from the bottom of the page on the left, to look at these long-term liabilities. A lot of them are supported by actuarial valuations, such as the post-employment benefits, the evaluation of the liability for both the local employees retirement system and teachers retirement system, workers' compensation, because you are self-insured for that. So we're responsible for looking at the actuarial valuations and making sure that that's the numbers that are on that accrual basis financial statement. And you have some debt, so you look at the debt schedule, the bonds, you have the energy performance contract, the monies that are outstanding, and we'll make sure that those balances are correct. When I come back to meet with the board, I do so, and I know I was not able to make it last year, so I apologize. Bill Overson did attend the meeting to present the financial statement. But we come with draft reports, okay? So we discuss them, and then if the board accepts them, then we're able to go ahead and issue those reports to the Office of the State Controller, and the school district will go ahead and release those reports to the State Education Department. And as I mentioned, the federal single audit is due later, so it will be followed by March of 2023. So the timetable on the next page, May 9th, we were here to do what's known as the control evaluation and testing work, and then we will be coming back to the district on August 15th, after the books and records are closed, to substantiate the numbers that are in the books and records. And I will be here in October or November to present the draft audit reports to the Board of Education. And you can see the federal single audit filing deadline. The staff on page 8, my director of audit services has been working for 25 years, and he will return as the person in charge, Bill Overson. Samantha Castano has about 18 years worth of experience, and Christian Strain has about 3 years worth of experience. So we have a seasoned team who's familiar with school district auditing and ConnectOne's books and records. 2 new standards that you'll see addressed in the financial statements. So leases, this is the same as the commercial world under ASC 842. Leases have to be evaluated to see whether or not they need to be includable on the financial statement of the school districts. And a lease would be the right to use a piece of equipment or a facility or a building for a period of time at a prescribed amount of money. And that valuation has to be performed so that we can go ahead and address the liability that needs to be included on the GASB 34 or accrual basis financial statement and the right to use. So you will see that for the first time on this financial statement that I will be presenting in full. And it will be easier to walk through it because you'll see something that we can really address. It's very difficult to talk about it without having the example to follow. And then the other standard that's applicable for this year is Statement on Auditing Standards 134. And this had to do with what the auditor's report looked like. So if you remember in years past, we went through the auditor's report discussing what we audited in the first paragraph. We had to read through the full contents of the auditor's report until you got to the top of the last page. And right at the top of the last page was our opinion. So the profession said, you know what, it's really difficult for the layperson to follow because not everyone wants to be an accountant, fortunately. It's very difficult for someone to reference where the auditor's opinion is, and that's really the most important part of the financial statement because you want to know that we have what's known as an unmodified opinion, okay, a clean opinion. The financial statement's fairly present. So they reworked the formatting of the opinion. In the second paragraph of the opinion in the second paragraph of the auditor's report is our opinion. Okay, so it's very different. And then it goes through whatever's management's responsibilities are and then our professional standards of responsibilities. So same thing, when I come back in the fall, I will walk you through those portions of the report that are different than the prior report. So those are the 2 big changes that have to be implemented in the school district's financial statements. I don't know if there are any questions.
So you're gonna see this how you did it prior, what's moderate risk, what's low risk, what's high risk.
Absolutely. And if there's anything high risk, then, and that's a good question, then obviously the audit procedures look a little bit different, okay, as far as different attributes that we would look at. Sample size might be a little bit larger.
And then your opinion will come after that.
Our opinion will be after the first paragraph as to what we audited, then it will be our opinion, and then it will go through how we made a determination that we can go ahead and give that opinion.
Jill, I just have one question. On the timetable, the third box down where it says presentation of the draft audit reports for October 2022. So as I understand the ST3 reports are due sometime around the first week of October. If we don't submit them timely, we get these dunning notices. Are you comfortable that we would be able to have final numbers that'll coincide with those due dates?
I think it goes back to your office really as to whether or not the books can be closed and there were relatively few audit adjustments. Okay? It will be a tricky year because of GASB 87, and I think that's what you're alluding to, because now it's a matter of taking those leases and finding a third party.
Which we did, yep.
Who did you engage in? So
Dead book.
Great, okay. So now Debtbrook is in a situation that they have every school district and local government looking for this service to be performed. And so to the extent that we can, I would like to abide by that October timetable. But that's a good question. If we don't get that information back, then we will be, presenting the report by November 15th, of course, but
Okay, understood, thanks.
Yeah, Bob actually brought that to our attention about 6-8 weeks ago, that we a change in practice where now we have to do debt book to look at our lease.
right, from an independent standpoint, your auditor can't do that.
Thank you so much.
You always do a great job. Oh, thank you. Very confident. Thank you.
Thank you.
Call for a motion and a second to adjourn the audit committee and reconvene the reorganization meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The discussion items for reorg. Board members? Oh, the minutes, one of the minutes, okay. Sorry about that, we gotta handle this. Minutes. Motion? Can I get a motion and a second to accept the minutes of the June 14, 2022 meeting?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
For discussion items. Now we're gonna move on to the discussion items for the reorg.
May I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
I was looking at other districts to see what they have on their committees, and I was wondering if we could entertain the possibility of offering or actually adding the curriculum committee.
As an ad hoc committee or as a board committee that meets? Because we put ad hoc committees when we're looking at something very specific.
I would go with that.
The ad hoc committee?
Yep.
Okay, so if you won't mind holding on to that, and I will talk to Mrs. Poppy about what topics we're looking at this year. Like, we just had the ad hoc committee for the Sequest program. For some reason I keep throwing off. We just had the ad hoc committee for the Sequest program, so we brought a curriculum committee in to do that work. And then they gave their proposals and we moved forward. So can I have Mrs. Poppy give you a topic that she would be interested in engaging the community with in discussions this year?
You okay with that, Lee? I think it's something we really should be having.
I thought the Sequest meeting was,
That was good. I think we should make this a standing committee so that this way,
I think so. We have to keep on following.
Okay, so you want to put a standing committee and then just have ad hoc charges as you go through? Okay, got
Yes.
it.
we can appoint 2 members and a third now who's be interested in that.
Okay. So you need a motion and a second to add a curriculum committee as a board standing committee?
I'll make a motion to add standing committee for curriculum.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
So we need 2 members and an alternate, do you want an alternate for each one of these?
Yes, okay, we're gonna need 2 members well, the audit committee is the entire board. Then we need 2 members and an alternate to each committee. So we have the Health and Safety Committee, the Policy Committee, Emergency Management Committee, Technology Committee, Mental Health Advisory Committee, and then this curriculum one you guys have put together. So, want to start with Health and Safety. You guys want to, do we know,
So many times.
do you guys, is anybody who wants to do that? Anybody? I mean, I don't mind doing it, I'm just asking if anybody else. I know that. I'll do it. All right. I know that the policy committee, me and Mylon did that last year. Is there somebody who wants to do that this year?
I do.
Okay. Okay, so Brian and Marisol, that's something you guys can do together.
I'll do the emergency management.
I definitely want to do that one. That's the one with Don, and I like doing that one with the directors and Laura wasn't and stuff, but no one has any
I'd
problem.
like to do that.
But and you want to be the alternate? Everybody okay with that? Okay. Technology Committee. Do we have to?
I'll do that as well.
Okay, so Brian and Lee, and then do we have an alternate for that?
I'll be an alternate.
Okay. The Mental Health Advisory Committee.
I want to be on that.
You want me to do that with them? Then I'll be the alternate. Is that okay?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, now the curriculum.
On that too.
Okay, so you two want to do that, then you can be the alternate. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Selena? Were you able to get all that?
Yes, I'm just gonna run through them just so we're all on the same page. So for health and safety, I have Mrs. Napolitano-Perno and Mrs. Kennedy. I do not have an alternate. Do you want to keep it empty, and if a need arises, we can figure it out. For policy, I have Mrs. Mallon and Mr. Murphy. I do not have an alternate listed.
I'll do it.
Okay.
Unless you want to do it. Policy. You know what, leave mine.
Just for, just so you guys are aware, Mrs. Kennedy is on every committee as
Oh,
either a
I'm
member
sorry.
or an alternate.
You're on every committee as a person or alternate.
So it's your turn.
Yes, I'll take that one.
Okay, so you're gonna do policy as alternate. And then for emergency management, we have Mrs. Augulus and Mrs. Napolitano-Perno with Mrs. Kennedy as the alternate. For technology, we have Mr. Murphy and Mrs. Kennedy with Mrs. Augulus as the alternate. For mental health, we have Mrs. Mallon and Mrs. Kennedy with Mrs. Napolitano-Perno as the alternate. And then for curriculum, we have Mrs. Augulus and Mrs. Mallon with Mrs. Kennedy as the alternate. And safety,
Are we
just.
doing a technology, or is that
Over here.
transportation, that's separate, right?
Oh, we have
That
one.
was ad hoc committee, so it doesn't need to be. And I just want to remind the board that the alternates cannot attend.
We know that.
No, we made the mistake
We
with
made that
mental
mistake a
health.
couple times, because you guys were excited, that's good, but we
We
can't have.
really like being on the mental health committee. I'm gonna miss, I hope people can make it sometimes. No offense. Okay, so, moving on. Recommended action, reorganization items. Calling for a motion and a second to approve items 2 through 50.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Ask if there are any questions from the board.
We gotta ask questions and then answer.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions?
Actually, let me see what's going on. Wherever the district clerk's contract, there's no attachment.
It's the consent agenda. I didn't get that to you guys when I talked about adding the 2 items. I was gonna say remove that, and I'll send it to you for the next time.
So she has to make a change to the agenda.
Yes, the consent agenda also has 2 items that were added as well, so I will mention that.
Okay, when you get to that.
Yes,
Okay.
on the consent agenda.
Okay, gotcha. I have no questions.
All in favor then?
Aye.
The motion so carries. Recommended action for personnel matters, instructional and non-instructional. Can I call for a motion and a second as amended to approve the instructional and non-instructional personnel items as presented.
There was an amend to this?
We changed the title.
Yes, on the instructional personnel
Oh, yes,
schedule,
yes,
item
yes.
16, the title is changed.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Any discussion from the board?
No.
Any questions?
No.
All in favor then?
Aye.
Motion so carries. Club advisors, chaperones, and coaching personnel. Calling for a motion and a second to approve the club advisors, chaperones, and coaching personnel items as presented. Make a motion? Motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion so carries. Okay, moving on to financial matters, recommended action. Call for a motion and a second to approve items 2 through 8. Asking if there's any questions from the board. Motion? Motion. Second? Any questions?
No, I think she's gonna be pulling to.
This is the financial,
Oh, the financial.
matters, and there's only a motion, there is no second.
I'll be second. I thought I said second. I have 2 questions, and it's really the Board of Ed stuff. It's Board of Ed travel and conference. It says we're budgeted for $14,570. We've only spent $665, encumbered to $2130, available $11,775. Is there a reason why we made that so high?
I thought we made an adjustment.
I thought we did, that's why. 2
Yeah, but
years
I
ago.
think we didn't, in the last 2 years, we haven't gone anywhere because of COVID.
With the,
So I think this year, things are, well, I don't know, things might be opening up. And
So-
there are conferences we can go to.
I do believe NISBA will be having their annual conference in person this year, so that money is budgeted and set aside for the board to attend that conference. It's usually an overnight trip, sometimes it's in the city. I believe this year it's in Syracuse, so it would include an overnight stay. That's what those monies are
well, he wants to go, she already told me.
allocated for.
Okay, that I understand. I just wanted to make sure, because I know we haven't gone anywhere or done anything like that, so that seemed like a very large number. The other one that is a little bit, is the Board of Ed memberships and subscriptions. $25,436. I don't know, is that NISMA? Is that? Because that's a lot, and we've already expensed $19,740.
If you could, I don't know off the top of my head, this year, so the National School Board Association, the board decided to no longer be a member of that association. That association's dues run from January 1 to December 31. So within the 21-22 school year, I contacted them and said, we're not going to be continuing our membership as of January 1. So that money, I believe it was roughly $4,500, was not budgeted for in the Board of Ed's code for the 22-23 school year.
I do remember us trying to get out of one of those. That was very expensive to be part of it. We weren't really using it.
Yes, so the board is a part of the New York State School Board Association, which, they provide a lot of our updates and stuff like that. ISLIP, we do a couple of locals on the Long Island National School Board Association, ISLIP School, something or other. And so there are a few, and they're all budgeted for. That budget usually goes fully out because I get all those membership dues ahead of budgeting for them.
Thank you. Any other questions? Anybody? All right, then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion so carries. Public hearing. Call for a motion and a second to suspend the reorganization meeting and call the public hearing to hear the district safety plan and code of conduct changes to order.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Flynn, you're up.
District Safety Plan. Don Flynn, Director of Security Services. Thank you.
So, good evening, everybody. As we usually do this time of the year, I give credit to the superintendent, Christina, and everybody who was a part of the district-wide safety committee. This document is obviously a public document. We have several emergency management plans that the district has. This being a public document, this gives a global overview of how we conduct our safety and security throughout the district. It's confidential documents, which are building level plans, which are building principles, along with what body are already working on. And then we have documents beyond that, those are quick guides and our emergency management guide, which is also confidential. In this, there have been several changes throughout the last couple of years. One to make note of. We've forever had something in there related to the pandemic plan. It was always 1 and 2 pages. Mr. Coley-Defar knows very well that last year that went to about 30 pages that we had to work on. This year, there is a pandemic that's in there. We changed up somewhat in that it's not just COVID related, it is related to the pandemic in general. That continues to be fluid. So there are some other pieces that are updated in there, mental health, violence prevention, and some pieces that we'll look at. So from this period forward, presented to the board, it will get put up on the district website. It's a 30-day adoption period, 30-day comment period from the public to look. But although we after 30 days come back to the board, any comments that are made from the public, we should know that for us the plans never finished and they're completed, they're filled, they're already being tweaked, and that's why we appreciate the members of the community and the board being a part of the district-wide safety. So that's an overview, so I don't know if there's any questions, and I'll just say again, the specifics we have redacted from the district-wide safety. Doctor, thank you again for all the hard work that you put into
Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Don. Code of Conduct, Mr. Coley-Defar.
Okay.
Assistant Superintendent for Administration and Personnel.
Thank you. So I just want to thank Ms. Pisani and her team of individuals for going through the Code of Conduct. As the board may know, every year there has to be a public hearing for the Code of Conduct. There has to be a period of about 30 days that the public can make comments on. So I'm just going to go through and highlight some of the changes that have occurred in the Code of Conduct for the 22-23 school year. Jesse, next slide, please. So as I said, the district is required to present the changes to the public and allow for a 30-day comment period prior to the adoption. We're going to try to adopt this on August 30th. We can't do it on the next meeting, which is August 2nd, because that hasn't allowed for the 30 days. So August 30th will be the date that we will approve the Code of Conduct for the new school year. All of the changes to the document are either crossed out in red or the changes are made in blue if there are additions. Most of the changes that are in blue are just grammatical things, or we're trying to clear up definitions and things of that nature. So some of the highlighted changes that I want to present to the board on page 8 of the Code of Conduct. Youth and Family Service Coordinators is replaced by the word social workers. Our Youth and Family Service Coordinators, which clearly doesn't flow off the tongue very well, they're the social workers for the district. So we just felt that let's keep in line with what we are doing. On page 27, there was an appeal for the duration of a suspended student. Initially, it was 5 days that parents were allowed to appeal, but now we wanted to give parents additional time to consider the suspension, so we have extended that to 10 days. We have deleted the Child Protective Service investigation on page 45 of the document because really that's related to policy 5460. So Ms. Fallon, Mr. Murphy, if we're going to explore that, we can certainly do that in the policy committee meeting. And the other substantive change is on page 47, which we are just redefining terms related to tobacco and marijuana. The changes to all of the document can be found on those pages listed. There it says additions, and then there are additions and deletions. So if anybody needs to review that document prior to making any comments, they can go to where things are added or deleted. And the website that the code of conduct can be found is on our website, on the district's website, but more specifically, it's here at ccsdli.org/our_district/security. And if anyone should have any questions related to the code of conduct, they want questions answered, they want, changes suggested changes during that 30-day comment period, which truthfully will end up being 6 weeks rather than 30 days, because again, the board is not going to see this for approval until August 30th. They can email that website, that email address, which is codeofconduct2223@ccsdli.org. And again, I just want to thank Joanne Pisani and the committee for putting together all of the changes. She would have been here to present for you tonight, however, she didn't want to. No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. She wanted to. I'm sorry.
You wanted a bus. That is also the website that you can find the district-wide safety plan over the course of the next 6 weeks. If there is any comments or questions or concerns, you can actually email myself directly, and I will bring them up to the emergency team. I'm ladams@ccsdli.org, and it is also under that tab, the security tab that is on the district-wide breakdown. So those will both be up there for the 60-day period, the 30-day period, and then we will have the board adopt them at the August 30th meeting.
No problem. I need a motion and a second to adjourn the public hearing and reconvene the reorganization meeting.
Motion.
All in favor? Aye. Consent agenda. I need a motion and a second to approve items 2 through 21. 2021 were added. Anyone have any questions? Motion.
Item 3 will be tabled until the next meeting because there is no backup.
Any questions? All in favor then?
Aye.
Aye. Motion so carries. Items removed, or we don't use that, removed. New business. Discussion items, Board of Education topics, hiding in plain sight, youth mental illness documentary. Lynn, I believe that's you.
So I had a brief conversation with Dr. Adams regarding this topic. There was a PBS documentary, I believe it was in 2 parts, both 2 hours each. While a lot of the information was a lot to absorb, there were some small pieces that we can maybe take out of that and maybe start something as far as maybe identifying some of these little signs, these little things people don't really identify until it becomes a big snowball. The child is not leaving their bedroom, or they're not socializing, or they're not coming out for dinner, or, it's the little subtleties that start to add up. So I was wondering if maybe, throughout the course of this year, I know we always do mental health, or we do the drug committees with the community where everybody's welcome to come and visit these things. But maybe it's sort of been, change it up a little bit, maybe put an assignment to parents, maybe look at part 22, there's something that they felt is very compelling, or something that maybe needs more attention, that we can maybe have a nice community conversation about this.
So I just want to pause for a second and congratulate Mrs. Joanne Pisani, who was appointed tonight to be the Director of Student Services, which is the old title of Director of Pupil Personnel Services, and also to congratulate Mrs. Stephanie Burns, I'm sorry. I want to call her Stephanie Graff, but she'd be a tennis player then. Stephanie Burns, who has become the Director of Science, Technology, and Family Consumer Science. So I just want to congratulate the two of them before I move on with this, because that's a pretty big job, and I'm very happy that 2 of our own internal candidates are taking on those roles in Connecticut and moving forward with their their careers as well as trying to help our students and our community be better. And I know Mrs. Pisani, who couldn't be here tonight, not because she didn't want to be here tonight, but could not be here tonight, is very much interested in reaching out to the community, and she has actually put together, and I wish I brought it today, and I'm thinking I can probably get it from my office, but I will certainly email home to the community that she's actually put together small workshops this summer even off of a survey that she put together out of the mental health committee and asked parents what they wanted to explore in smaller groups. So I think giving her this documentary and saying, what pieces do you feel that would really impact our parents in a very positive way to help identify what's going on in their own homes, and then having her build workshops around that, I think would be wonderful. I did watch the whole 4 hours. I was crying at some points and upset at other points and very happy at some of it. It was a very personal documentary, and so I'm glad that you brought it up, and I will certainly bring it up with Mrs. Pisani and see how she can work it into smaller pieces, because it was a long 4 hours and it was a lot of information.
A lot.
But I think there's chunks of information that's very important.
Well, one of the compelling pieces I found was that the children responded better to a holistic treatment versus the rubber room, stick them in the room, throw them some medication, maybe throw them a therapist once or twice a week. The holistic approach, they were talking about maybe the success of those programs seemed to outweigh the success of the rubber room, throw medication, and I'll let you speak to me for 5 minutes.
So there's actually been some studies about what they're calling nature deficit disorder, which is just that kids aren't outside as much as they used to be. So that the natural circadian rhythm and the beautiful sunsets and the things that are going on in nature, kids aren't being soothed and relaxed and calmed by being outside like that anymore. So that was very interesting to watch how well that one student especially did when she was in that outside camp. And I think it's really important that we let our kids be outside and bring them back to nature and realize that nature can be very healing. So I think a lot of the things that we saw in that documentary could certainly be discussed with parents, even if it's just, look at our beautiful sunset right now. Take a walk outside with your kids once a night and take a look and see the different colors. And, I think those kind of things help everybody feel better.
Well, you'll listen to those too. Quite a few people are vitamin D deficient. So, yes, absolutely. But if we can get them out, a little bit of sun, even in the winter, just get a little sun. Everybody wants to hibernate. I get that. I want to hibernate too, but I don't want a thick jacket, try to get that sun. And the vitamin D, I believe, is part of a very small piece of depression and anxiety and everything. It does play a balance. When you hear seasonal blues or winter blues, it's because your vitamin D is part of the decline and you get the blues. So
I don't think there should be some sort of parent workshops through the school year. I think that's an important piece that we really have not done. We've done a little bit, but not the way it should be, because parents have to know what's going on. And parent workshops do work because those are the people that want to learn, and they will come. So I think that's something that we should really look into, especially now with what's going on.
But it's also more intimate. It's different versus somebody on the stage versus what Lee is saying, where you're in a room, maybe you feel comfortable to share your experience as opposed to being in this auditorium on the stage. So I agree with Lee on that.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I actually was able to watch and it was excellent. What you said, very, very informative. I actually didn't get to see the second part, resilience, yet, but that was the first part I did see. I had put children's welfare on the board discussions. I had sent an email and I had called the superintendent in regards to our students that are not getting lunch or being fed as they were for years, past, especially with the pandemic. And I just wanted to make sure that we were taking every step possible to be able to make sure that all of our kids are getting nutritious meals. Parents know ways to get help if they need help. And Oh, that's good.
And I took it very seriously.
And I appreciated that because I never want to get at a child that's going hungry.
No. So, Jesse, can you just exit out for a second, please? So, under announcements on our website, it says outlets for food support this summer. You know, not being able to feed your own family, 1 in 8 Americans what is it? 1 in 8 Americans have food insecurity. So, in a school district that's 5,000 people, that's a lot of families that have food insecurity, which means that they don't really have enough food to feed their family, and that is a source of some pride for some folks, and they don't want to reach out maybe to a social worker and say, you know what, I can only give my family 5 meals this week, and there's 7 days, and there's 7 of us, and we don't want anyone to go hungry. And we had during COVID, we were feeding all kinds of families, and that was wonderful. That has since that state aid and federal aid has since gone away, but these organizations still feed hungry Americans. So if you click on outlets for food, and you will get this outlets for food support this summer, you click on Feeding America. This you put your zip code in, and it actually tells you where the food banks are in the local vicinity. So no one needs to know that you're going on the website and looking at this. If you're food insecure, please feed your family. And this is one way to find where all the food banks are. And you can click on the food bank and it'll tell you what days and times it's open and how to get there. This is Local Repairs, this is Apple Harvest, and it takes you right to their website so that you can get food for your family. And if your family has plenty, this is also a place that you can help donate to feed hungry folks on the way. If you hit the USDA link, this is the federal government's Meals for Kids when schools are closed. Same kind of thing. Put your zip code in, and it will actually show you where the meals are being served. And there are literally dozens of schools around us that are serving meals for kids, and it's school-age children, so it's ages 4 to 18, and within 5 miles, there's all of these blue dots. If you click on it, it tells you when it's being offered and what and how to get to that school building. So there should be no reason why you can't get to these schools and get the meals that your family needs. We just want to make sure that we can help you find those.
So, Linda, on another note, this coming September, lunch is no longer free for everyone.
It is through September 30th, but after that, there is an application process which will go out in the August packet, which we've always done in the past. We haven't done it in the past few years, but in the August packet is the application for free or reduced lunch, depending on how many members of the family and what the total salary is that's coming into that. And then there are some people who automatically get that through DSS. It's a direct certification process. So there are families who apply, and there's also families who have the direct certification. But everybody should apply because no one should go hungry.
And what is I guess there's some metrics to it. So you have a family of 4, you have earnings of X amount of dollars and so forth, and whatever it is. Do they increase those numbers every year? Because obviously
They do. They increase the salary every year. Yeah.
And if somebody puts on their fictitious information on there, does anybody really check?
So I don't know exactly where the applications go. Do you?
We keep the applications and we have to random disclosure. 2% of the applications are
And they don't be required to do a W-2 or payroll stuff? Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for doing that. Appreciate it. So if anybody has any issues, they can always contact us and we'll help them as much as we can. Moving on to public comment. I will now open the floor for the open public comment portion of the agenda. I will call individuals forward one at a time. Please wait for my acknowledgement before stepping up to the podium. You should have received a numbered card from security on your way in. If you have not, please see a security guard in the back of the room. Any person wishing to address the board shall address the board president only. Comments should be kept as brief as possible and relate to school matters only. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes for one or more topics. Individual employees, parents, or children should not be identified by name, title, position, grade, or building. If members of the audience speak out of turn, the board may consider a recess until order is restored. Is there anyone who would like to speak?
Did you get a card?
I'm number one, he just said. And I said to him, I at least don't need a card because I really believe I'm number one. First, I'd like to tell you that you should also kind of reach out to the churches in the area. Because I know St. Joseph's does a meals to go on certain nights. So you go down there, you have to sit down there, you get a meal package and you take it home and you can take it home to your family. So that might be something else that you can help other families with. It doesn't have to be with St. Joseph.
St. John.
You can just walk in and those nights and just take a meal. I'm not gonna bother with complaints.
I do that with St. John's, I deliver not to you.
Yeah, real.
There's a lot of packets there, a lot of boxes.
So really, the thing I want to talk about is, has anyone seen Doc? Have you seen Marty McFly? Do you have the DeLorean out there, the flex capacity? Because this is Back to the Future. This is the way the board used to be. This is the way it always operated. All the years I went to a board meeting. I went to board meetings to defend my children. I went to board meetings to complain about different things. And it was always very, very relaxed, very, very civil. And I don't know why we moved away from that in the last election cycle. And I'm very happy to see that the president is not the fault. Okay? Well, the president is not the fault. It's the people have to deal with each other. And if you keep doing this, the people will love you. And no matter what outside forces come at us, they won't be able to defeat us. We'll have a board and we will have a school district that does what it's supposed to do, which is educate our children the way the parents want it to be done. And the way the parents are going to pay for it. So I just want to say, very nice tonight, very nice.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I'm calling for a motion and a second. A motion and a second to adjourn the business meeting.
Motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a good night, everybody.
You're close, Brian. You're close.
I do have the oath of
Yeah, like the St.
I state your name.
Ask questions.
You solemnly swear.
You solemnly swear.
I'll support the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support
The Constitution of the State of New York.
the Constitution of the State of New York.
That I will faithfully discharge the duties of.
Yeah, no, she
Open the door. Good night.
Of the Connecticut School District.
According to the best of my ability.
So you know. Please, please.